Hello there, TBU fans, and welcome once again to another installment of the Union News. This is following the Week 2 games, really getting into the season nicely, seeing some very fascinating games indeed this week. All 6, which was always nice to see, no scheduling issues going on this time. But, of course, I'm Shroomraver, and I'm not alone. I'm joined once again by my man and co-host, Chaos in the Sky.
Hey, how's it going?
So, I guess with no admin issues to pick up on this week, we are pretty much going to just dive straight into the first of the 6 games that happened in the Battle Union Week 2, and that took place between Squirtacular Josh and Slateport Vale versus Richie and Livewormpool FC. Now, this game did result in a 3-0 victory for Slateport Vale, Josh taking his second win of the season. Richie unfortunately slips to 0-2. And there was a little bit of hacks going on in the game, it has to be said. We saw a turn 1 burn, unfortunately, by Manaphy on Richie's Druddigan, but Richie able to make the best of a bad situation. He's getting rocks up and he's just making the best of a burnt Druddigan, dragon tailing everything around. But it wasn't the only hazard to strike him down. Toxic onto Suicune before it could get a sub up was unfortunate. And then it was just the story of Richie getting burnt a lot. He tried to sort of get back with his own statuses. Unfortunately, landing a Toxic onto a Manaphy with hydration wasn't going to get him very far. There was, of course, one major turning point in the battle, as there is with so many of these. And that was Chandelure taking out Druddigan, and Richie sending in what appeared to be a Mienshao to try and pursuit trap the Chandelure. The Chandelure does not switch out, lives on 8 HP with a Colbur Berry, and gets the Flame Body onto what appeared to be the Mienshao. It took me 10 minutes after watching the battle to realise that was in fact Zoroark, not Mienshao.
Wait, it took you 10 minutes to realise that a Mienshao doesn't get pursuit?
Yes, it did.
Solid. So wait a minute. Hold up. I gotta ask some questions. This is the only battle I didn't get to watch this week because of titling errors. Yeah. But you mean to tell me that first of all, Richie did not bring a Victini?
He didn't, no.
Second of all, Josh once again hacks badly his opponent.
A little bit, yeah.
Third of all, that we still have not banned Josh from the game.
All of these things are true.
All right, I'm going to, well, once again, the last time it was Sizz, this time I'm going to have to just get in a call with Frito for a solid 2 hours to explain to him that he needs to manage this more properly and get these people to stop doing these things. Just
start lodging your complaints. Is there, in fact, a Battle Union complaints hotline that we can call?
Can I have a complaint box to put in at the end of each week? Can that be the segment after Smack Talk, the complaint box segment, where we just get to put in all of our complaints?
I think we might have to see if we can accommodate that. That would be an interesting little section to add in. Chaos's complaints. There we go.
There you go. Tell you what, I'm going to hit up Trip and Richie after this video and see if they want to form a union, because this is not okay.
Perfect. I love it. But yeah, that was an example of some of the hacks that unfortunately played Richie. The Flame Body didn't actually matter too much because Chandelure was going for a Will-O-Wisp that turn. But it was weird to see Flame Body when Richie does in fact have a Victini. And then what was quite entertaining was seeing the Chandelure on 8 HP and Richie going for U-turn, which didn't KO it. He was burnt and U-turn wasn't stab and it only did 6 HP.
No, it did. It definitely did matter because he would have missed the Will-O-Wisp.
Oh, that is true. Well, actually, no, he wouldn't because it's Josh, so he would have.
Oh, you're right. I forgot he invented the game. It would have burned, paralyzed, and froze him all at the same time. My bad.
Yeah, but essentially what we saw was Josh did. I think there were a few plays where I sort of looked at and went, "Oh, really? I'm not sure about that." But they did end up working out for him. He had some intriguing sets going on, which we'll go into more detail about on Thursday in the power rankings. But Josh found his own way of playing around, whether it's Mienshao, the real one, or whether it's Zoroark, and that was to just burn everything in sight, and not take any chances.
You know what on Richie's team can't get burned?
Victini, yeah.
Exactly.
No Victini for him, but I think actually, to be honest, Richie was making the right plays in a lot of situations, but Josh was either ballsy as hell or completely reckless. But either way, it's worked out for him and he's managed to take the win.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like Richie was playing well. I just never agree with not bringing Victini.
This is true.
I can't say much because I did horribly in D2, but I did bring Victini every week. And when I played it correctly and not like an idiot, it always put in work, even when the opponent had things like Mega Charizard X or Goodra, which work really well against Victini.
Yeah.
So I personally, just from my experience, despite not doing so well in the season, in my own season, I find that there's never a reason not to bring Victini.
Yeah. It is a very, very powerful mon, but I guess Richie was suspecting that Josh would be prepared for it, and Josh did have some nice options to deal with it. You know, you're looking at the likes of, he's got a Chandelure, he's got a Miltank, he's got a Manaphy. These things can do some nice damage.
Break and Bolt Strike, I feel like Chandelure is the only thing that can really do much.
Yeah, you're not wrong, but I think he was just thinking that Josh would have options and would possibly over-prepare for it, so he was trying to blindside him without it, as it were. But it unfortunately didn't work out for Richie this week. But it's still early days. It's 0-2, but there's plenty of time to get back into it.
He's just going to win the next are there 11 weeks in this?
I feel so.
There is, yeah.
Maybe
it's just
10.
Okay. It's just like the PPL. I didn't know if they had 11 or not, but yeah, he'll just win the next 9. Easy.
Yeah, easy, absolutely easy. So with that, I guess we can probably move on to the second game, Chaos. What do we have in the second game?
We have the return of the hacks against Trip.
Yes.
Is the next match. We have the Dallas Staravias, Pokemon Trip HD, versus the New York Shelmets, coached by Super Gassy. And the first turn was pretty good for Trip. He had a Rindo Berry Quagsire, which, despite how crappy Quag is, even it can take down a Jolteon when it lives the HP grass, then goes for EQ. So right off the bat, Gassy loses his Jolteon, which was pretty good for Trip. Jolteon didn't do a ton to Trip's team, but its speed and just the Life Orb strength that it was packing could cause him some trouble. Then Trip ended up getting parried on his, I believe his Scizor definitely, and I think his Dragonite. Yeah. It was, I think the Dragonite was against the Klefki, and because the Dragonite got parried, the Klefki got to put up spikes, and then Trip brought in his Sizz after Dragonite. He brought in his Sizz to defog, and he got paralyzed twice in a row as Dawnfan came in.
3 times, I believe.
3 times? Was it 3? I thought it was twice.
I think it was 3 times in a row.
It was around that amount. The point is that Trip always gets paralyzed.
Yes, this is true.
Trying to go for defog desperately just keeps getting parried, and this let Dawnfan get a ton of damage off on the Scizor, brought it down to like a quarter of health with knockoff and EQ. Is just really bad for him to let that thing rack up so much damage. And then of course there's the blaring problem of the fact that Azumarill annihilates everything.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Absolutely.
I think Azu got 4 out of the 6 kills for Gassy. It's man, what all? I think it took down. Wait a minute, do I have it written down? I didn't write down what it killed, but it killed a lot of things.
Yeah, it did. I know Scizor and Azelf were among them.
Yes, Aqua Jet on the Scizor, I believe. I can't remember.
Yeah, Aqua Jet and the Azelf as well. Oh, it took down a Dragonite.
That's right. It killed the Dragonite. It hit the player up on it.
Yeah.
One thing, I watched Trip's side, and I only had enough time to watch one side of each match. I like to watch both, but I only had enough time for one. I watched Trip's side, and Trip made a lot of the times he was saying that he wasn't really banking on it, but he was kind of hoping that he would get misses on stuff like Zen Headbutt and Play Rough. And it's probably never a good idea to try and consider those things happening.
Yeah.
Unless you're Josh.
Yes, unless you are Josh, because he can puppet master them at will, it would seem.
Yeah, he can literally control. He'll make the Azumarill Play Rough itself, and that's how he'll beat it.
Yeah, basically that's how it works. That is how Josh functions.
Yeah, that's how he wins. But anyways, overall it was a pretty good match. It wasn't as hacksy for Trip as it was the week before, but definitely some hacks played some part. I didn't Theorymon enough to see how badly it mattered, because he did end up getting off the defog. It just ended up with some more damage on his Scizor. Probably could have lived the Aqua Jet. I think it was Banded Azumarill, so I don't know the exact set of the Scizor, if it could have, what health it needed to live that Aqua Jet. But so I'm not entirely sure how much it mattered, but it definitely wasn't as bad as his week 1 match. And overall, it was a pretty good battle. I enjoyed watching it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Scizor itself was certainly a bulky set. I believe it was mainly specially defensive, I think, but it has max HP investment. Trip, do correct me if I'm wrong here. But I think, the damage it took being paralyzed, It could probably have taken an Aqua Jet, I would imagine. Certainly it could have taken one, I would think. Which
he was paralyzed, though, so I think that just means the Azu would have gone for Waterfall instead.
Quite possibly.
But yeah, like I said, I didn't super hard Theorymon into it. I don't know how badly it mattered. I feel like it kind of mattered a bit, but at the end of the day, I think you can never really know for sure, but roughly speaking, it was pretty unfortunate, but it definitely wasn't as bad as last week where he just got completely annihilated by hacks.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm not going to go too much again into detail on the teams. That's more for Thursday's thing. A few things I do want to pick up on. I did like a lot of Trip sets. Special Agility Dragonite, very cool. And I liked that. It was just unfortunate that Gassy didn't bring the team I think Trip was really expecting. Trip saw a lot of setup opportunity on the likes of Almamola, the likes of Ferrothorn, neither of which appeared on Gassy's side. So that was unfortunate. He had to try and pick his moments. And I thought trying to, stay in against a Klefki might not have been the best idea. You've got your Agility Mon against something that paralyzes and your Trip, and you get paralyzed most turns. So that was less than ideal for him. But I can forgive...
Let me calculate the word most. 99.
Yeah, pretty much.
0.999%. Yeah, that looks right.
Yeah. I mean, I can forgive everything because counter Quagsire. But everything else can slide.
Wait, he had counter on the Quagsire?
He did. He brought counter
Trip,
Quagsire.
I love you.
Yeah.
You're my second favorite now. Congratulations.
And then on the other side, you had Gassy playing another very effective game of what's your switch into Banded Azumarill? And the answer is nothing, I think.
Okay, Google. Switch into Banded Azumarill. No. Well, wait. Alamala. No.
Nothing going on Trip's team, unfortunately. I liked how he saved Celebi until the late game. It looked to be able to put in a nice amount of work. Unfortunately, bulky Zardex was able to deal with it. But yeah, as I say, as a general summary, I think Trip, he generally played a good game. He did get unlucky with hacks. He was sort of trying to prepare for a much more bulky team, which didn't, the one that Gassy brought didn't quite afford him the right setup opportunities that he needed to really go into this game effectively. And yeah, it was he got an unfortunate role again this time, but we'll have to just hope for his sake that is not a running theme this season.
Wait a minute. I just realized that Gassy has a Mesprit, Donphan, which is a great spinner, a Zard X, and an Azumarill. Who let this happen?
Well, maybe that can be another addition to the Chaos Complaint Box. How did anyone let Gassy draft these kind of...
We're going to need another... We should have done a video on why did this happen.
We're going to need a bigger box. That's what we're going to need.
Frito, I demand more funds into our
we need more funds for a complaints box. Frito, make it happen. Make it happen.
All right, let's move on to the next match.
Yeah, the third match saw Quill and the Dungannon Typhlosions taking on Enzo and the Swiskers.
Wait a minute, can we change... just to let you all know, this isn't really a match, it's more of a slaughter, but we're still going to cover it nonetheless.
Yeah, very much so. This did result, by dint of forfeit, in a 6-0 victory for Enzo. Now, there's a disclaimer before this. It was going to be ending in a 4-0 to Enzo. Quill did forfeit before his last two Mons went down, not knowing, being unaware of the fact that that forfeits do result in an automatic 6-0.
Is that a Quagsire joke?
Let's say it was. Let's pretend it was. But yeah, he was unfortunately unaware that would be the result of it. Everything's been explained. It's all been straightened out. It is going to result in a 6-0, but that's just unfortunately the way it goes. And well, what do we say about this match?
What is a Goodra and how do you stop it?
Yeah, Enzo saw very early, I guess, that Quill does not have a fairy type, and this is one of the reasons that when we're looking at drafts and when people are drafting, one of the greatest sort of cries of dismay is, oh, I don't have a fairy type yet, I need a fairy type. This match is testament to the reason you need a fairy type. And that is Rest Talk, Curse, Outrage, Goodra.
Nice and Crodra.
Enzo, he was allowed to maneuver himself into a position where he could send in his Goodra, set up curses, rest up, sleep talk, get outrages off, and basically kill everything in sight. And it actually didn't start all that well for him. Turn 1, always nice to leave your Starmie in on a Thunderous Therian.
No, wait, you don't understand, Shroom. You see, to make sure that the Curse Goodra rest set would work, Enzo had to draw not Baby Eye. Is this Baby Eye?
Quill.
Wait.
Quill.
Quill, it's Quill, my bad. Baby Eye, okay, yeah. I'm still trying to get all of the names associated with the teams, and I always flip them around. But Enzo drew Quill into a false sense of security by letting the Starmie go down. Let him think, turn 1 kill, I'm doing so well. It was all in his grand plan.
All in his plan. I mean, what it did allow him to do, of course, was confirm that the Thunderous was scarfed. Which, it's always nice to try and identify your opponent's Scarfer. So that, at the very least, he'll have got that information out of it. We then saw Scrafty absolutely tanking a Moonblast with the Roselli Belly from Cresselia, looking to do really well, and then promptly gets critted by the next one and goes down. And then it was the Goodra show. Goodra just went in and never switched out again, I don't think.
I'm pretty sure that Enzo only used half of his team.
Yeah, I don't think
he didn't need to bring the others. He just brought in Starmie and Scrafty, like, let's see if these things can actually do something. And then they died, and he's like, well, I'll just win then.
Yeah, and it was unfortunate because he never got to use his Miss Magus, which I saw the set and I thought it was absolutely fantastic. You were looking at Scarfed Miss Magus with Memento, Will-O-Wisp, Trick, and Shadow Ball, which was very cool. I quite enjoyed that because
that is amazing.
And of course the Starmie had Specs Rapid Spin because Enzo is a lord.
No, you don't, dude. You got to break the focus sash.
Oh, this is true. But yeah, I mean, there are a few issues for Quill that meant he could have sort of prevented this. Now, I understand that originally he did have Whirlwind on the Skarmory, but it was taken off last minute. Now, this is one of the couple of examples this week. Don't make last minute changes. They will invariably come back to bite you. And this was unfortunately one of those examples. If Skarm had Whirlwind, this would have been a very different game, because Skarm is one of those things that will be able to take an Outrage from a Goodra, and he could have
before it gets to +6.
Well, it can even take it at +6, probably. I haven't run the counts.
I think it does around half. I remember the damage, I think it was at +4, it was doing a little under half.
Yeah. So, I mean, if he'd had Whirlwind, he could have at least, he would probably have had to sack something to guarantee the safe switch, but if he did, he could have brought Skarm in, Whirlwinded out, and sort of bought himself some very valuable time. But unfortunately, he chose to put Brave Bird on, I guess, just to not make it taunt fodder, which it would have been, which is a fair, it's a fair idea to have. You don't want something to be absolute taunt fodder, so he puts Brave Bird on at the expense of Whirlwind, and it did end up costing him.
It made it into Goodra fodder.
Yeah, basically. And what we do have to say is that Enzo, he was fortunate with sleep turns, with sleep talk pulls, and confusion breakthroughs. This is, something that we should mention. If he'd have got confused one more time, or he hadn't pulled the right things with sleep talk, things could have gone very differently. And Quill, to his credit, was making some very well-timed switches in regards to when he knew a rest was coming, or maybe just even trying to gamble. But he knew the sort of pattern Enzo was locking himself into. He knew when rests were going to be coming his way. Unfortunately, he just couldn't do anything about it. He saw how much a Dragon Claw did to Goodra at +6. It took Goodra down to very, very low health. Goodra breaks through the confusion, goes for rests. And at this point, after Goodra
was poisoned.
Yeah, but he was able to get the rest back off. And, when Goodra's back at full health, Quill had to take the risk. He goes for a Dragon Dance, and you could look at that and say, well, he's just going to be able to outrage you. I think that was the only play he could make. He had to Dragon Dance at that point. He didn't have
definitely.
A choice. He didn't have a choice.
His only hope, unless he wanted to bank on a crit, which is less of a chance. There was more of a chance of Enzo not getting the outrage sleep talk roll than there was of him getting a crit.
Yeah.
Because it's like 6% chance of you getting a crit. There was a 66% chance, more in the favor of Quill than it was of Enzo, that Enzo would roll Curse, which he was already maxed set up. I'm pretty sure he was +6. Mm-hmm. And he could get Rest. He had a 33% chance of getting Outrage. So definitely, if I was in Quill's position, I would have gone for Dragon Dance twice in a row and then Dragon Clawed.
Yeah, it was all he could do. But unfortunately, by that point, the damage was done. It was already a bit too late. And unfortunately, Enzo did get the Sleep Talk pull, managed to get the Outrage, and obviously that's going to take out like 12 Haxoruses at +6 from that sort of range. So yeah, it was a tough loss for Quill, But a bit of a learning curve. This is why you need to have those fairy types. This is one of the reasons why they're just so important in the format. Because Enzo will do this to you. If you don't have a fairy, he will Goodra all over you. And
he's cruel, man.
He is an evil genius. I think is what we would say about him. He is an evil genius.
You will suffer.
Yeah,
if you made any slight mistake, Enzo will find the little small crack in your draft plan armor, and he will take a Goodra and shove it into the crack repeatedly until it just opens up into a massive gorge before proceeding to pour down honey and then send bees after you.
Very, very graphic way of describing it. I like it.
Very painful.
I like it, yeah. So, with that pretty much all said and done, let's move on to the fourth game of the week, and this was one I was really looking forward to personally.
Shoddy versus Eevee.
Basically, tell us what happened.
Okay, so we had Scissorsome in the... pronounce it for me.
The Somerset Sizzles.
Thank you, man. And then we had Frito for Damian and the Welshions. It was... It ended up being a 4-0 in Frito's favor, actually managing to win 2 weeks in a row. I'm just waiting for where he loses 8 times in a row and makes us all hate him again. Well, more so than we do now. But Frito played pretty well. They both played pretty well, but it was a very, very good match. One of the biggest problems I feel is that Sizz had 2 very decent ways. It's really hard to have a switch in for Sylveon. And Sylveon was the biggest problem, ended up being the biggest problem for Sizz, because Sizz, he had 2 switch-ins depending on what the set was. As we know, Sylveon gets Psyshock, and it tends to run HP Fire, HP Ground to deal with Steel and Psychic types. Sizz had both Crobat and Registeel, which were really his only... Clefable can I think his... Clef was not specially defensive. I'm pretty sure it was physically defensive, but it did not appreciate Hyper Voice at all. So Crobat and Registeel were really his only main ways of dealing with the Hyper Voice. And really early on, he switched his Crobat into Entei and got Sacred Fire burned immediately, and ended up losing the Crobat very early on. Then later on, he had his Registeel against the Mega Lopunny. Against the Registeel up against Mega Lopunny, and Sizz stayed in and power-up punched, even after seeing it did very little, even with the +1, it didn't make much of a difference. And the Lopunny just drain punched it and brought it down into Hyper Voice range. And as I was watching the match, I already knew ahead of time who won. I normally know who wins because I look at the spreadsheet. I normally know who wins before the match happens. And as I was watching, I saw how does Frito pull off this 4-0 victory? And then when I saw that the Crobat went down and the Registeel got severely weakened and the Sylveon was still at maximum HP, I realized Hyper Voice.
Yeah.
Hyper Voice is how Frito pulls off this win.
Yeah, basically.
For all of you who don't know, Sylveon is top tier fairy in the draft format. We were just talking about how fairies are such a big deal.
Yeah.
Up there Sylveon, Clefable, I don't know, what would you say would be the top 3? Sylveon, Clefable, maybe Florges, something like that?
I would say probably Sylveon, Clefable, and Aromatisse for me.
Aromatisse?
Yeah, much as...
No, wait a minute, never mind, Mega Gardevoir. Shut up, we're done. Mega Gardevoir, never mind. I forgot that Mega Gardevoir exists.
I mean, Aromatisse can't be taunted is one of its big draws.
Shroom, don't make me hate you in the middle of a recording.
Alright, let's keep on going with the battle.
Anyways, Sylveon, top tier mon, always difficult to deal with. That Pixelate Hyper Voice does not care, even when it's not specs. I think it took down Clefable when it was, I think Clefable was max HP minimum special defense, but it was like a 70% or something like that. Hyper Voice didn't care. It was gone.
Yeah.
Registeel came in with 20% left. Hyper Voice didn't care. Registeel was gone. The Greninja came in to deal some damage. Hyper Voice didn't care. Greninja is gone.
Yeah.
Garchomp came in, poison jabbed. Sylveon lives on 2, gets poisoned. Hyper Voice still, at this point, does not care and kills the Garchomp. And it's just over. There was one point in the battle, I didn't really understand it at first, but he had his Garchomp in against the Fortress. Sizz's Garchomp against Frito's Fortress.
Yeah.
And I don't think Fortress had any offensive moves other than Rapid Spin, because Frito went for it when there were no hazards on the field to break potential sashes on the Chomp, which was smart, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I would never expect Chomp to have sash, but definitely Fortress couldn't do much else, and the risk was there, so it was smart to. Sizz set up a Swords Dance with Garchomp, which immediately, as soon as you see a +2 Garchomp, you promptly cry.
Basically,
because it's a +2 Garchomp. And he went for another one, even though Heliolisk was still alive, which I didn't get, because Heliolisk naturally outspeeds, and his Frito's variant was Scarfed anyways. But he set up a second one for no apparent reason, but he ended up killing the Fortress anyways with an Earthquake the next turn. It didn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. I just didn't understand why go for a second one instead of just killing it. Why give the Fortress a chance to do hazards or anything else? I'm pretty sure, I can't remember exactly, I think that was the turn that the Fortress Rapid Spinned just to break the Sash that did not exist, so it didn't really matter.
Yeah, but, I mean, that was a problem with Sizz in this game a little bit. He showed signs of sort of this new season, new Sizz kind of deal, not staying in at +4 against what I believe was the Heliolisk at that point.
Yes, the Heliolisk came in after the Fortress died. Yeah.
But the thing is, I don't think Sizz should have let it get that far, because Frito allows Chomp to set up a Swords Dance on the Fortress. Mistake. Maybe Frito doesn't know he's Sash, but he is. But then Sizz goes too far. He sets up the second one. What this allows Frito to do is break the Sash. Now, I haven't done the counts. I think it might have been possible that at +2, the Fortress might have gone down to the Earthquake. But what him setting up the second Swords Dance allows Frito to do is go into the Heliolisk. And, if you're a Heliolisk and your opponent has a Garchomp, you are running Hidden Power Ice. There's no two ways about it. Now, Sizz will have known that he's got to be running Hidden Power Ice, and he knows that it would take him down to Sash, but he could live it if he still had it. Now, I thought Sizz's play was to just go for the +2 Earthquake onto the Fortress. If it doesn't take it out, he doesn't lose anything by it. If it does take it out, he's still got his Sash intact. So I thought that was a little bit of a misplay on his part, along again with, as has been mentioned, that second power-up punch with Registeel versus Lopunny. It allows Sylveon to get the mini sweep, because Sizz has allowed Registeel to take far too much damage, that's to the point where it can't take a Specs Hyper Voice from Sylveon. A mistake I personally have made in the past. In Season 1 of PPL, I did exactly the same thing, although, albeit not through power-up punching. I just didn't play it well, but that's another story. That's a story for another time. Sizz, he still sort of Sizzed it a little bit. But
definitely. I remember seeing when he stayed in for the second power-up punch, I thought, you realize that you lose to Sylveon now.
Yeah.
Like, if Sylveon had been lower health, I sort of could have understanded it, but the amount of health, it was at full HP. There was no way, like, he could have sacked something, brought something in, done damage, killed it possibly, but it was at full HP, and his Crobat was dead, and he was just letting the Lopunny rack up damage on the, you can tell from the very first power-up punch, from the amount that the power-up punch did, and just the sheer strength of Mega Lopunny, that staying in would not do anything for him in the long run, especially when the Lopunny was running Drain Punch, of all things. It just seemed like nothing but a bad move. Also, with his Garchomp, considering that the opponent has both a Heliolisk and an Extreme Speed Entei, I personally would not try and set up with it, even though against Fortress was the best time to do so. With both of those things still alive, I wouldn't have tried to set up even at all, because, it's just going to be Heliolisk HP passes. You get to kill the Heliolisk, but then you die to Extreme Speed.
Yeah, that's pretty much the story of it. I mean, overall, once again, a fantastic battle. One of the ones that we were all really looking forward to was Sizz versus Frito. Both had their gimmicks. We saw the Assault Vest offensive Registeel on Sizz's side, Synchronize Sylveon on Frito's side. Interesting gimmick, ultimately pointless.
Wait. I didn't see that. He had Synchronize?
Yes, he did. He did have Synchronize.
Has he ever calced Synchronize and Hyper Voice against a Clefable?
Potentially not.
I doubt he did.
I mean, I'll be the first to hold my hand up and say I want to see it work, but this maybe wasn't the game for it. But, I mean, both fairly well-built teams in their own right, minus some of the gimmicks that maybe didn't work. We saw Sizz bringing 2 Wish Passes, one of which was Mega Gallade, which was intriguing, for 2 Frail U-Turners and a Registeel with no recovery of its own. Nice building from Sizz. On the other side, the Welchions are looking like a really solid unit. Frito is playing his team very well at the moment, and, for all the bluster we've said and sort of all the get good we've told Frito, he is looking good at this point. His team's looking good.
He got a 4-0. No, he got a 4-0 instead of a 5-0. Last week was a 5-0. He did worse this week than he did last week. He still needs to get good.
This is true. We're still holding out for that 6-0 from Frito, but it's looking promising at this point. Frito's looking like a genuine threat.
I better see a 6-0 where none of his Pokemon take any damage.
That is the ultimate goal. So Frito, make it happen. But
I will say it right now. If Frito manages to do it, then no one will ever tell him to get good again, ever.
This is
unless
true.
His opponent is retarded and just gives him the win, in which case, screw you, Frito.
I'm pretty sure Shardy will still say it, even if he does get that.
Yeah, but, we don't count Shoddy as a person, so it's fine.
This is also true. So, with that, I guess what we can do is move on to the 5th game, which saw the Scandinavian Stoutlands and Skyrander taking on Gabe and LA Galaxray. Now, this, much like Siz's game, was going to be Gabe's first game. And once again, Gabe showing his team-building prowess, predicting, I believe, 5 out of 6 of Sky's team, because Gabe is a team-building god. He just seems to know exactly what his opponents are bringing. The one thing I will say about his team-building this week, and it's something we touched on with Quill, he was going to bring a Scarfed Kyurem Black. At the last minute, he changed it up to Life Orb. Sky was very, very well prepared for a non-Scarfed Kyurem Black. This is why we don't make last-minute changes, because once again, it did end up coming back to bite Gabe, because Sky did take the match 2-0. Now, Gabe actually started out really well. He was making the early predictions and going for these safe plays, knowing that Thundurus can bot Hippowdon. He was in with a Mon that didn't want to be up against Thundurus. He knows that Thundurus can bot Hippowdon, so he goes into Dragalge instead. And in doing so, he scouts out Thundurus very well and realises it has nothing to hit Dragalge, which was great early knowledge. He powers on the switch to Cobalion. That's all very nice as well, looking to get burns on switches. Gabe was playing the mind games. He just has this tendency to just see every possible outcome, analyse it very quickly, and make the best play. What this allowed him to do was get huge damage, both passive and from moves, onto Drapion, whilst taking very little damage of his own, wore down the Drapion incredibly well, and basically negated it as a threat. He did make some huge plays as well. Ice Fang on the switch to Landorus and missed. He also missed a second one later on, but that actually didn't end up mattering too much. The first one, that was unfortunate. He did freeze the Cobalion on the switch as well, which was nice for him because Cobalion, as we know, is an enormous threat. It's just, I believe, gone 18-4 in PPL Division 2, which is mental. Gabe was forcing switches all over the place. He gets nice chip damage and eventually he gets rocks up. And at this point, Skyrander was not playing badly. Gabe forced him into this position where he had his back against the wall and he couldn't make plays. He just couldn't afford to try and make any plays because Gabe just seemed to be in his head. He did try to make one. Sky looked to try and make that cheeky play to get his Cobalion in on Dragalge, predicting a Scald to try and get the Thor. But once again, Gabe is one step ahead. He sees it coming. He doesn't go for Scald. He keeps Skyrander pinned in this position that he doesn't want to be in. And he also sees a Magnet Rise coming versus the Hippowdon, and it allows Hippowdon to go for a slack off, get itself back up to really good health. And then it starts to go wrong for Gabe. It all starts to fall apart a little bit. And one of the things that I think was possibly a bad decision on his part was to run Sandstream on Hippo, because he had nothing to benefit from it, and Sky actually had more Sand immunities. So I think Sand Force might have been better. It allowed Mew to take a little bit too much chip damage. He might have been able to live on a little tiny bit of health and maybe get off a burn, maybe a defog, something like this. I don't know. Now, it goes a bit wrong when Gabe sacks off Hippo to a Grass Knot. Mistake. Gabe needs Hippo for Heracross. He knows this. And he also knew that he had a complete wall to the Grass Knotting Thundurus in the form of Dragalge. He then lets Emboar get paralysed, which he knew Sky was going for because he knew Sky feared the Scarf. And it all starts to fall apart a bit for Gabe. He sacks off the wrong Mons. He takes too much damage when he didn't need to. He'd been playing a fantastic game, but then the end game, it just didn't work out for him. And Sky was finally able to claw his way back into it, having beautifully saved his win condition. Heracross was very early sort of shown to be a win condition. He kept it back incredibly well. It would have been so easy for him to just go into it in anger when he was up against the wall, but he saves Heracross, he knows it's important, and very crucially, it didn't have a Scarfed Kyurem Black to go up against, because of the last-minute change, able to get the Earthquake sweep late game and guarantee Sky the 2-0 win.
It was, oh man, the first half of the match, Gabe just, like, became my favorite competitive battler for, like, the first half of the match while I was watching. It was amazing. I literally wrote down a paragraph about the one play early on with the Hippo and the Lando.
Yeah.
Where the Drapion was in and he U-turned with the Mew. And as soon as he saw that when the Mew was going out, Pursuit didn't hit, he knew that it was a knockoff coming again. Because knockoff was the best move to go for. The Drapion was burned, but it was the best move to go for on the Mew at the time without Pursuit. So he brings in the Hippowdon, barely takes anything from the burn knocked off. Then he predicts Ice Fang kills from where the Drapion is. So he goes for Ice Fang, and then he misses as the Lando comes in. That would have been amazing if it had hit. But then he makes up for it by freezing Cobalion, once again proving that Gabe was a great battler for the first half. Obviously, he predicted the freeze because only the best of players can predict them.
This is true.
And it was just for the first half of the battle, Gabe was in complete control. And I was slightly in awe from how well he was playing. But like you said, he got to the back half of the game and he started to make some misplays. And I just think that after that first misplay, he kind of got flustered probably. And it's really hard when something goes wrong or when you make a misplay and you know you do. I know when I battle, I really hit myself hard when I make a wrong move or I mess something up.
Yeah.
And it usually leads to me making worse and worse decisions as time goes on, which is something that definitely me and other players need to work on. But I imagine that's roughly what happened. You know, it's really hard when you mess up not to just keep worrying and overthinking and mess up more. But it definitely was a very good match. I was very impressed with Gabe, especially at the start. But at the end of the day, he messed up in the second half. And it cost him greatly. And like you said, usually you do not want to make last-minute changes. You definitely want to try and stick with what you've got. And sometimes it can work out, but as we've seen this week, a lot of the times it doesn't.
Yeah. But, you know, once again, as we say, this is Gabe's first game. He's a game behind on getting used to his team from the others. And as we know, Sky's got a team that you really need to break yourself into and get used to. Looks like he's getting there with it. You know, as we thought he would. He's very good with hyper offense. But last season again, Gabe did have a couple of wobbles early on in the season. And then he came back to be a semi-finalist. So, you know, I don't think this is going to impact him too horribly. You know, he knows where he's gone wrong. And he's still one of the best team builders in the format at this point. I think in all leagues, I think Gabe is one of the best team builders going. And, you know, yeah, this won't set him back too much. He's not going to take this too much to heart, and it's just going to really, really spur him on to go on and get some wins this season.
Have you actually seen Gabe's perspective of the match?
Yes.
Have you seen his graphics and his editing work?
Aren't they beautiful?
I want him to do all of my videos ever in the history of time.
Basically.
Like that is one of the cleanest looking videos I have seen in my entire life.
He really is a god with the effects and stuff.
He is amazing with it. If you guys have not seen Gabe's side of the match, definitely specifically, if you don't want to watch any matches this week, don't even go for the match. Just get in there for like a minute or two to watch his like the preview at the very start of the match, and then the actual battle. His graphics work is amazing. I love the little HP bar he has that goes down by one notch every time a Pokemon dies. That was amazing.
Yeah, the graphics and the beard are two of the many selling points of Gabe.
Exactly. Gabe's, I just wanted to bring that to light because I thought it was so amazing.
Yeah,
it deserved to be pointed out. It was great.
It really does.
But anyways, let's get on to the final match. We've been, we probably taken way too long in this episode, but Frito's going to have to get over it. Lastly, we have Eric and the Bristol Bidoof, Ashton Akai, whichever he wants to go by, and the Bristol Bidoofs versus Baby Eye Sinister Sableye, I believe.
Yes,
that's the name he goes by on the YouTubes, and the St. Louis Chatots. This one, without a forfeit, was a legitimate 6-0, I believe.
Yeah, it was.
It was, oh man, Baby Eye does not like Honchkrow, even slightly, somewhat, kind of, maybe. No. It was awful. But anyways, let me just grab my notes right here. It kind of was a little unfortunate for Baby Eye early on because it was pretty early into the match. It was Hitmonlee, his spinner, against Melodic, and he switched it in on a burn, which is not the best idea to do, but still, not horrible. But he got burned turn one on his Hitmonlee. Yeah. That's pretty bad. That basically makes Hitmonlee nothing more than being able to rapid spin. Then following that, as the Rhyperior came in, not really fearing the Hitmonlee considering that it was burned, he missed a Toxic on the Rhyperior, which was just unfortunate. And then because Rhyperior is slower than good old Hitmonlee, Eric was able to get up Stealth Rocks and just spam Stealth Rocks until the Hitmonlee died of burn because it was pretty low at that point.
Yeah.
Which meant with the Hitmonlee dead to burn and Rhyperior having the rocks up, undoubtedly, it was inevitable that Baby I was going to have to deal with rocks for the entirety of his match.
Yeah.
Which is it's never fun. But then he did make a really good play, though, because he saw that he wasn't going to be able to Rapid Spin. Rhyperior kept going for the Stealth Rocks, and Eric couldn't really afford not to go with Stealth Rocks in case he kept spamming Rapid Spin, so he went for Stealth Rocks while they were still up, expecting the Rapid Spin, and then he used another Toxic, Hitmonlee did, that did land, which was very clever on Baby I's part, I feel. It was also very good on Eric's part to keep the rocks up. That was very skilled of him. Later on, it ended up being Heatran versus Weavile. As anyone who has played in the League format knows, Weavile is always a complication at all times.
Very much so.
It's very hard to find something that can deal with a Weavile, like even slightly. And but Eric found a way to do it in a surprising manner. It was Heatran in against Weavile, and good old Choppleberry coming through for Heatran lets it just absorb, take about a little more than half, I think, from a low kick.
Yeah.
Whereas normally I believe it would be an OHKO normally, at least with the investment that Heatran had. And he lived, Flash Cannon, and by Weavile, probably the biggest threat. No more Ice Shard to take on Honchkrow or Nidoking. Yeah. Probably one of the biggest problems. He didn't really have Eric didn't really have a good knockoff switch in, a solid one, other than Melodic, pretty much. Yeah. So getting rid of the Weavile was very, very big for Eric and very crippling for Baby I. And at the end of the day, it ended up coming down to Baby I had his Amoonguss, I believe it was his Amoonguss, his Slowbro, and his Delphox. Yeah. And Honchkrow came in against the Amoonguss, Brave Birded. The Amoonguss stayed in. It was kind of a toss-up on if Amoonguss should have stayed in or switched into the Slowbro to take the Brave Bird. But Amoonguss went down, Moxie Crow got the +1, then just Sucker Punch Slowbro and Delphox into oblivion, and that was game. It ended up being... Eric played very well in keeping all of his Mons alive and getting the... Is this the first legitimate 6-0 of the season?
It is, yeah.
It is. That's what I thought. I thought so, because there was a highest win last week was 5-0, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Yes, so very, very convincingly well played, very well-deserved first 6-0 of the season by Eric. I was very impressed with his play. Yeah. It was a good match overall. Baby I played well as well, but it was just really hard to deal with the Hitmonlee getting burned and the Choppleberry taking out the Weavile. Eric just played wonderfully, and there wasn't too much that Baby I could have really done about it.
Yeah, and it was unfortunate because as we see as analysts, and indeed as Eric has said as well, the score doesn't entirely reflect the battle in this instance, because Baby I was making some very intelligent plays and made some very intelligent team-building choices. I raised my eyebrows when I first saw Surf Slowbro over Scald. However, he goes on to explain, nothing really on Eric's team particularly cares about being burnt, with Scald. Rhyperior dies to either of them. Conkeldurr could have Guts. Yeah, he's not staying in with Slowbro on Sharpedo or Honchkrow, so that was fine. He's made a good decision there, and I really enjoyed the bulky Colberberry Magician Delphox with Wish. Very, very nice set. I really enjoyed his sets, but, sometimes we get into these battles and we look at our opponent's teams and go, oh my god, that Mon destroys me. Unfortunately, that Mon was Honchkrow. Expert Belt Honchkrow was a very nice idea. It hits, I believe, 8 out of 10 potential Mons for super effective damage and avoids that Life Orb recall. Yeah, unfortunately, Honchkrow was just that Mon that kind of destroys Baby I's team. But Baby I was making good plays. He was making very intelligent doubles kind of throughout the match. Chaos has spoken about that last gasp Toxic play onto the Rhyperior, sort of seeing what Eric was doing with the rocks and making sure they would stay up. And yeah, the Weavile versus Heatran, that was kind of nail in the coffin moment for Baby I. Once that Choppleberry kicked in, Weavile's going down, and suddenly one of the biggest threats going is gone. But he was looking to try and...
Who expects Choppletran?
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing.
In his defense, who expects Choppletran of all things?
Generally you're looking at going Shuckerberry's the one, especially since he ran Shuckerberry Heatran last week to deal with some ground type
and
attacks.
especially, I would have especially expected the Shucka, considering that Baby I had a Mega Altaria.
Yeah,
for
absolutely.
EQ and then get a flash cannon off. I didn't have time this week to watch the team builders, so I didn't even know it had Shucka. So when he went for the low kick, I thought, why are you staying in? And it's like, oh, you have a Choppel. Why do you have a Choppel instead of a Shucka?
But that's just the thing about Eric, he can see these things coming. And I guess he figured he had Scarf Jirachi to deal with the Altaria, so he was just looking to... He's like, okay, I've dealt with Altaria, what's my next biggest thing? Weavile, Choppel, Heatran, and it works. But yeah, Baby I was making intelligent plays, doubling into Amoonguss from Slowbro, doubling into Amoonguss on a Heatran from Slowbro, knowing that the Milotic is coming in, and, he's proceeding to try and win this war with Amoonguss versus Milotic, and he was doing it. Milotic is paralysed, there's no guarantee for Eric that he's getting out of this low of Milotic, so he kind of just pressed the red button and brought in Honchkrow to clean up. Again, Baby I did not play horribly. He didn't play badly at all. There were a few big misplays, of course. He's a young guy, he's still learning the format. Eric is hugely experienced in this format. Once again, last week we had this conversation about Baby I versus Frito. Frito has a lot of experience in Draft League format. Eric has even more so. He's been playing off-season in the PPL Division 2. He's also been in, what's the other league? Is it the MPL?
NPL? I think it's the MPL.
He's been in at least 3 leagues, possibly more. So he's got massive experience in this format. Baby I is new to it, and he's a young guy still finding his way a little bit. So, and, as Eric said, the score did not necessarily reflect the match. So, Baby I is still learning, but he's showing signs of being a really intelligent player with the switches he was making, some of the plays he was making too. So, hopefully he won't be too set back by this. Hopefully he'll still have that really nice attitude that he's shown with the last week's unfortunate loss too, that he'll try and get himself back into this. Still plenty of time in the league. Stranger things have happened than someone coming back from losing their first 2 games. Certainly stranger things have happened. So there's still plenty of time for him, and he's showing himself that he's making intelligent plays. I think he's still got plenty of time to make a good showing this season.
I definitely think with what you said about the whole experience thing, it's a big deal that people don't realize as much, because this is going to sound a bit like an excuse on my part, because I didn't do too well in D2 of PPL this first season. But definitely, even if you've watched it consistently, that's why I thought when I first joined the PPL that I'd do pretty good, because I had watched plenty of league formats. But it's not until you really join a league and start playing a lot that you get the experience you need to actually play well. There were a lot of things that I didn't consider that I do consider now after playing an entire season in PPL's Division 2. And it's experience of actually being in a good competitive league and playing. It's completely different experience from just watching.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
It's really a matter of, for someone like Eric, who's been, like you said, in 3 leagues. I don't know how many seasons of the MPL he was in. He was in season 1 of TBU, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was.
So he was in most of PPL D2. No telling how, probably at least a season, maybe 2 seasons in MPL, and a whole season of TBU. It is the amount that he has learned just specifically on league format.
Yeah. That
alone gave him a huge advantage over Baby I, and it's I can definitely. It's really hard to go up against someone who has that much experience.
Absolutely. LBA, that's the one Eric's been in, the LBA.
LBA, not the MPL. The MPL is a thing, though, isn't it?
It is. There are many leagues.
Too many acronyms, man.
This is true. But yes, that is pretty much going to conclude our slightly longer than we had imagined rundown of the of the week's games. So we're going to very quickly.
How long have we been going?
Just hitting 50 minutes. So that's
we gotta hurry. Okay.
Yeah, we'll really quickly go over the standings in the MVP race. So first up, this is how it's
Richie is the best.
The tables, as we do. Richie is indeed the best. The Kanto region, the Kanto division first off, and it's very polarized. 6 teams, 3 with 2 wins and no losses, and 3 with 2 losses and no wins. So at the top we have Enzo and the Swiskers, 2 wins with a differential of 7. Then we have Slateport Vale and Josh with 2 wins and differential of +6. Following them up in third is Supergast and New York Shelmets, 2 wins with a differential of +4. And the bottom 3 we're going to see Richie and Liverwurmple FC, 0 wins, 2 losses with -4. The Dallas Staravias and Trip, also with 2 losses and differential of -5. And then the Dungannon Typhlosions and Quill bringing up the rear with 0 wins, 2 losses, differential of -8. So those differentials are actually really very close. So it's still very much up in the air in the Kanto division. So with that, what's going on in the Johto division?
Over in the Johto region division thingamajig, we have Frito and the Welchians are in first with 2 wins, 0 losses, and a +9 differential. Eric is in second in the Johto division with 2 wins, 0 losses, and a +7 differential, so just behind Frito by 2 kills. Very, very close. Then we have the Scandinavian Stoutlands, which is Skyrander. He has 1 win, 1 loss, and a differential of +1. Very good for him. Then we have Gabe and the Galux Rays, who are 0-1 because their first week match of the Orsamet, or however you pronounce it, Scissors, and the Galux Ray has not happened yet, so they are 1 match behind. But he's got currently in fourth with 0-1 and -2 differential, and then beneath him is the Orsamet Scissors with no wins, 1 loss, -4 differential, so 2 more than Gabe. But once again, their match has not happened yet, so their positioning could switch around, or most likely will, depending on how that match goes when it happens. Then in last place, we have the Chaytots Babelai with 0 wins, 2 losses, and a -11 differential.
Very much so. So that's how the standings are. Let's take a really quick look at the MVP race. I'll take the bottom 5 as before. In 10th position, coming in with a nice first game, we have Diggersby. Shardy will be happy to see, of the Swiskers, who is currently sitting at 2-0. Drawing, I should say, with Heliolisk and Miltank. They both have that differential as well, of the Welshons and Slateport Vale, respectively. In at 9th, after another good debut, we have the Bristol Bidoof's own Honchkrow, sitting at 3-0 in 9th. Then in 8th, we have the Welshion's Sylveon, pretty much a mascot mon for the team, coming in at 4-1. Drawing by way of Alphabet, with Slateport Vale's Latias, also at 4-1. And in at 6th, we have the final 4-1 mon of the Scandinavian Stoutlands. We have Mega Diancie.
So good to see Mega Diancie still sitting there, even though it didn't come this week.
Yeah, very much. So.
Yeah, in your face, shoddy, as Tripp would say. Take that. Then we have, for the top 5, we have Heracross, also of the Scandinavian Stoutlands, with 4 kills and 0 deaths. With the 0 deaths, it puts it ahead of 6th through 8th place. 4th, we have the Welchians' Entei, which is tied with Diancie with tied with Heracross, with 4 kills and 0 deaths. Then in 3rd place, we have Eric and the Bidoof's Melodic with 5 kills and 0 deaths. Melodic is amazing. Then we have Supagassi's Shelmet's Azumarill is in 2nd with 6 kills and 0 deaths. Very impressive. And then because of the 6-0 this week, Enzo and the Swiskers now have their Goodra with 8 kills and 1 death at the top of the ladder of the MVP race.
Yeah, we should say that Goodra didn't officially get those last 2 KOs because of the forfeit before the last 2 went down, but those 2 KOs, as we said, are being attributed to Goodra, so it does end up getting the clean sweep and going up to +8.
Very good for it.
So, with that, we're going to take a quick look at the bench trades and a quick look ahead to the matchups for next week. Only 1 bench trade, I believe, has occurred, and this is going to be news to Chaos. He hasn't heard it yet, but I think, my friend, you're going to enjoy this one.
I like to do these live with improv, so you guys get as much of my reaction as possible. Yeah. What is it?
So, Josh is the only one making a move this week, it would seem.
Is it something that gets all of the hacks?
No. He has moved Virizion to the bench, and he has brought up Tyrantrum.
Ah, yes.
Yes, I thought you might like that.
Yes.
So what do we think of that?
All of the death. I think the Goodra should step aside, because it ain't holding that top 1 in the MVP race for long.
Yeah, Tyrantrum is a massive, massive threat.
Did Tyrantrum get MVP for PPL?
It did.
This season?
It did. Tyrantrum finished PPL Division 1 Season 2 at 17-1.
Cool. Tyrantrum is the biggest... Please, everyone, go and try and find me the Head Smash Tyrantrum switch-in, because I'm still looking. I've yet to find it.
There's very few going, you know.
Even if it takes a Head Smash, let me know how well it takes the EQ, the Dragon Claw, and the Fire or Ice Fang. I want to know.
Yeah, Tyrantrum's a massive threat, and, Josh has plenty of wall breakers on his team, so, he's just decided to make room for one more. I'll be intrigued to see exactly how he's going to use it.
I know exactly how he's going to use it. He's going to flinch his opponents with Head Smash, which Head Smash can't even do, but it's Josh, so it will.
Yeah, pretty much. I think that's probably how it's going to go. He could always run Iron Head, I suppose.
It gets End Headbutt. There you go.
Oh, there it is. He can run all the flinching head moves, as it were.
Easy.
So, with that, let's see exactly who Josh and the rest of his fellow coaches are going to be facing next week. So, a really brief look at the matchups. Week 3. First up, we're going to see Liverpool FC and Richie taking on Eric, Ashnakai, and the Bristol Bedoofs. That's going to be a very interesting game. Of course, it's 0-2 versus 2-0. Richie will be desperate for a win. Eric will be looking to extend his unbeaten run. Then we have Quill and the Dungannon Typhlosions taking on Sizz and the Somerset Sizzles. 2 teams still looking for their first wins. Same with the third match, which is going to be the Dallas Stravias and Trip versus Gabe and the LA Galaxray. All of them looking for their first wins. Trip will be hoping that he isn't hacked out by paralysis for a third week in a row. Then we have Josh and Slateport Vale taking on the St. Louis Chatots and, of course, Baby Eye. Baby Eye will be hoping to try and put in a strong performance against a team that's still currently 2-0. Then, this is going to be one of the big ones for Week 3. Super Gassy and the New York Shelmets versus Frito and the Welshions. Neither of these teams have lost yet, so it's going to be the first loss for one of them, and the other will be looking very strong. Or it could be a tie. It's rare, but it has happened.
Doesn't one of them... Wait a minute. Does one of them have the Fortress? Who had the Fortress?
Welshions.
Welshions. Bring Explosion. There you go.
Easy. There it is. Could even try and make the draw happen. But yeah, what's more likely is that one will win and one will lose. So this is going to be an early identifier for who can really put in a strong showing, looking to go further into the league and guarantee those playoff spots. Final game is going to see Enzo and the Swiskers versus the Scandinavian Stoutlands and Skyrander, 2 of the really big personalities in the league, going head to head. We'll have to see exactly which of those 2 can come out on top. So, those are the games for next week. And last but most certainly not least is when we like to have a little look at what the coaches are saying about each other in our weekly Smack Talk section. Now, this was pretty much the Sizz Awesome show, we have to say. The first example actually does not involve him. It involves Trip and our very own analyst, Shardy. And once again...
That was false advertisement.
Well...
Where is my scissorsome?
Well, this is the starter. This is the amuse-bouche before we get into the main meal of the
I thought that the purpose of me being here was that we didn't have to deal with any comments from Shardy anymore.
Yeah, but you can talk about how Shardy's wrong, but actually he kind of isn't. Because it's talking about Quagsire.
Oh, never mind then. One of the few things this is like on the list of 7 things that me and Shardy agree on, this is here.
Yeah, Trip was trying to say that Quagsire isn't bad, telling Shardy to leave it alone, and Shardy says, I'd say prove me wrong, but you can't. So, really throwing down the gauntlet to Trip to make Quagsire work, because, well, I mean, to be fair, Quagsire did a thing. It took out a Jolteon.
What is Jolteon's base defense and HP again?
I believe its base HP is 12,
I'm pretty sure
and
that
its
it
base
dies.
defense is 7.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that he, instead of bringing the Quagsire, he could have brought a banded Bidoof and tackled it to death. So
Quite possibly.
I mean,
the gauntlet is
didn't
laid
it die
down.
the turn right after? It died as soon as it killed that Jolteon. So
yes,
I mean,
yes, it did.
I say the verdict is still out, and by verdict still being out, I mean Quagsire sucks.
Well, there it is. Chaos has said so. But now we can get on to Sizz. And it was basically Sizz versus Frito in its entirety.
A novel.
Sizz starting out saying, I, even like some of the top league players, had help and advice when building my team. But hey, if Frito needs to keep spouting this shit to make himself feel less like he needs to get good, because he hasn't mentally recovered from finishing below me last season, then cool. Cutting stuff from
Sizz
the master
needs to
of
calm
words,
down.
Sizz.
Hold up a second. I'm bringing this up to management too. This is not okay.
You say he needs to calm down, but he doesn't. He goes further. And this one, he says, now I hope you'll excuse my very colourful language here, ladies and gentlemen, but I am quoting verbatim from Sizz Awesome himself, saying, I'ma fuck Frito so hard he'll undergo mitosis. I don't even understand what he means.
He means he's going to screw him so hard he rips in half and makes 2 new Fritos, because that's what mitosis is.
thank you for the biology knowledge.
Yeah. Mitosis is where like cells split in two to make two new cells. So I assume that's what he means.
That's beautiful from Sizz. And yeah, it kind of just continued from there. Sizz versus Frito. I'm looking down the Word document on which I have my notes. This next section goes on for 2 pages. I won't be reading all of it. I'll just try and like pick out some gems. Frito, I hate to say it, Frito, but you really lost this exchange.
He said in his video he lost the Smack Talk exchange.
Yeah,
I agree.
Frito's like losing to you will most likely happen one day, waiting to see if hell freezes over first, which was nice. And then Sizz is just like, oh wow, such smack talk, very zzz. Oh sorry, I must have fallen asleep. Cliched garbage makes me tired. Did it take you a while?
When did Shoddy join the call?
Well, Frito then tries to cite Shoddy. He says, what, are you tired of Shoddy's team? At which point Trip comes in with, this is jaw-dropping material. You're not wrong, Trip. And then Sizz just... he says, man, your eagerness to keep spouting this Shoddy's team crap is really weakening your game. He's like, yeah, that whole 0 matches just got me sick to death of them. Sorry, trying to make my game as weak as yours. That was Frito saying that. Sizz responding with, you just need to get good at smack talk. And yeah, Sizz made some errors grammatically and spelling-wise. Frito tries to pick up on them, and Sizz does not approve of this. He says that he is clearly the queen of puns, which, you know, is not wrong. Sizz is the queen of puns.
Wait a minute, I thought you were the king. Is there something I need to know?
No further questions. And then he says that this was just one of the greatest bits of speechcraft I've ever seen. Sizz saying, "Smack talk is a subdivision of puns. You could get a degree in smack talk and still need to suckle at the teat of my hilarity to even have a hope of making somebody actually need a burn heal." Which was just outstanding.
I sure hope that no one gets burned in the coming weeks, because I'm pretty sure all of the Rossberries were used to save Frito.
Yeah, Sizz just has a way with words. And Frito did desperately try and come back, but it didn't work. Like, Frito said that Sizz will be the court jester when he's finished with him. And Sizz just says, I'd rather be the court jester than the village idiot. At least people laugh at me because I want them to. And followed it up with, can anyone else hear Frito Googling smack talk?
Oh, that's great.
And it just kind of goes on, but Sizz really won that exchange. Who
was the real winner of week 2? I feel like it doesn't matter if Frito beat him in Pokemon, because I feel like Sizz is still the winner overall after that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Sizz did very well in that exchange, and I applaud him for that. Frito was really an excellent smack talker last season. But Sizz has kind of put him in his place here. So Frito, step up your game, my friend. You know, I believe that you can. I've seen signs of how good at smack talk you are last season. Step your game up, my friend, because Sizz has really kind of knocked you off your pedestal a little bit. You really need to get back on there. You know, the win is a good one this week, but you lost the smack talk game. So keep believing. I'm sure that you can get back up there and give as good as you get, Frito. I believe in you. Let's see if everyone else does. But yeah, that's on that enigmatic bombshell. That's pretty much going to wrap things up from us. We've been going for just over an hour. I apologise for how long we've gone on. We kind of got absorbed in a lot of things. We are.
It's Shoddy's fault.
I blame Shoddy entirely. But we are working on cutting down the length of time we talk for. We just hit 1 hour 5 minutes, so we're going to wrap things up. As I say,
I like how you said that, but this is longer than last week.
Yes, it is. It is. We try sometimes, but there's a lot to say about the TBU. Sorry, the Battle Union. There's a lot to say about it. It's all very interesting stuff going on. It's fascinating to see the progression through the season. But yeah, we are going to try and wrap things up here. So thank you all very much for watching and sticking with us this long. We do hope that you have enjoyed. Now, Chaos, any final thoughts to add before we sign out?
Yes, of course. As always, I have my final comments before we end the video.
Yes.
Hashtag ban Shoddy, lest we ever forget. Richie, despite not uploading, is still the bestest that ever was and ever will be. Frito, will you please just drop everything in your life and quit everything so that you can go into the Himalayas for 7 years and train well enough to finally get good, for Pete's sake? Josh, stop hacking the game. Plisk, hey, thanks. Gassy, you suck. And Trip, please run Cherry Berry on everything next week so I can stop flinching every time you get paralyzed.
There it is. Chaos's final thoughts. And that last one, especially pertinent. Trip has had no manner of paralysis-based luck. We hope, for his sake, and for the sake of his and Chaos's sanity, that can be reversed at some point.
I'm pretty sure week 3 he's going to bring something with T-Wave, and he's going to T-Wave his own Mon.
I could see it happening. Maybe he can go for, like... Does either him or anyone have Magic Bounce?
I hope.
That would be just the ultimate sort of put down if he goes for a paralysis and it ends up being reflected back and he paralyzes himself. I hope it doesn't happen. Part of me hopes it does, but a lot of me hopes it doesn't.
I'm an awful person. I hope everything happens.
Well,
anyways, thank you guys for watching. We hope you enjoyed, and we will see you next week for the next installment of the Battle Union News.
Yes, we will. So until then, adios, take care, and good night.
Farewell.